Welcome to the Monday, April 27th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Commissioners for Radnor Township. We're going to get started with a Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to remind everybody who is sitting at a fixed camera not to stand up if you can't take the camera with you, because otherwise we'll just get a view of your pants. Anybody who can move the camera, feel free to do so.
The flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Starting with public participation, members of the public can participate in this meeting by directing an email to publiccomment@radnor.org, which we will read. I have not received any yet, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any commissioner who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion? Or any member of staff who would like to move an item from the consent agenda for discussion? Hearing none, I will move for the approval of the consent agenda as is. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to committee reports, item 3A. Resolution number 2020-54, awarding the contract for construction and consulting services for the Roberts Road Culvert to Gannett Fleming Incorporated in the amount of $32,466. Mr. Norsini, I assume this is you?
Steve, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this contract is for Gannett Fleming to provide construction engineering services for the Roberts Road Culvert. That will include responses to requests for information, all the material submittals, as well as up to 10 visits by their structural engineer. So this was originally included in their design contract, but as the design contract drew on due to permitting issues, we used their structural engineer to come out after major storms to make sure that the culvert was still viable and safe. So most of that money was chewed up doing that. So in doing so, we were requesting the board award this contract to provide those services to from Gannett Fleming to the township for this culvert project in the amount of $32,466.
Okay, I will so move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment? Haven't received anything on this in the public comments, so I will call the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 4, reports of standing committees of the board. Do we have any reports? Anybody who'd like to report? I imagine with the shutdown, it's been pretty quiet.
I guess I'll just let everyone know that the library is virtually open for business. So anyone who has wants to go to their website, they have been running an amazing amount of programs for kids and for adults, and expanded their access. So everyone should go and check it out and take a look.
Thank you, Lisa. Moving on to item 5, new business. Subsection 5A, discussion and update of the Radnor Township School District Tap Trail easement agreements and other considerations. Mr. Norsini, I assume this is you again.
Thank you, Mr. President. We just wanted to update the board and perhaps step through the easements themselves and the project. So in your packet, the solicitor provided a draft deed of easement from about 2 years ago. That was, Commissioner Booker has actually mentioned this at several meetings, this document, so it does exist, and it is there for your review. So what we're doing currently is working with the school district to obtain these easements that run on the Radnor Senior High School. And in doing so, Mr. White thought it would be important at this point to step the board through that if you so wish, since we have members that were not here when a lot of this occurred. And if you so wish, I will take you through, I guess maybe perhaps the best plan would be the illustrative tree planting plan. It shows quite a bit on the project. So Ian, if you would be so kind as to pull up the attachment for this agenda item.
And Steve, while Ian pulls that up, just to add to what it summarized is that the school board is also looking at this at the same time. So they're having similar discussions as what we're having here tonight. So in the interest of trying to keep both boards kind of on the same course discussion-wise, that was another reason why we felt it important to include it on tonight's agenda, again, just as an update and a discussion for everybody.
So Ian, if you would be so good as to scroll down to the plans that are in color. Thank you. So this shows a considerable amount. I will tell you that the easement lines on this plan have changed originally, and that was at the request of the school district. It's not reflected here, but we have reduced the easements. So the far left of the page is the intersection of Lancaster Avenue and Radnor Chester, and that's where this trail begins. And as you know, that's where the Radnor Senior High monument is, the stone. So from that point, proceeding east along this trail, you can see the new trees that are going to be planted, the small, not colored circles with an X are the trees to be removed. Those horizontal lines adjacent to the trail, that's stormwater management. That would be around the center of the page. And Ian, if you could progress to the next page. So basically here we're traveling along Lancaster Avenue. Again, all the large green dots are new trees proposed. The smaller black and white with an X are trees to be removed. The gold area is the actual proposed trail. Down near the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a crosswalk. That is actually the entrance to the back of the school. You know, when they held the fireworks, that was the entrance for that area. That will be kept open and will be given a crosswalk for pedestrians. Ian, if you could proceed to the next page. So again, there's that crosswalk and that entrance on the left. Trying to move the pictures. As we keep proceeding, and you could go to the next page, Ian. I'm trying not to bore everybody totally. Okay. So in the middle of the page, you'll see some horizontal lines surrounded by trees. That's another stormwater management system. A little bit further to the right is yet another. You'll see there's a manhole there. So we're heading towards King of Prussia Road. Ian, if you could go to one more slide, please. So now we're at the intersection of King of Prussia Road. Hang on one sec. We're up by King of Prussia Road and Lancaster Avenue. So this is also where Pike Field is. That's actually where all the writing on the plan is. That's Pike Field. As you can see, we do have some stormwater management at the base of that slope. So if you see the golden line, the yellow line, that's the proposed trail. Those are contour lines that lead down to Pike Field, a sloped contour. And there's a stormwater management system down there, which the school district had brought up if they could connect to that to help alleviate some of the ponding that occurs on Pike Field, and that would be fine. And as you head on the, if you look at the right-hand side of the page, now the yellow is going north, if you will. We're heading towards the high school. If you could go to the next slide, please, Dan. So again, if you look, this is the trail is the yellow, new trees being planted. And if you could go to one more, Ian. So for some reason, Simone Collins has that listed as High Road. That's not actually High Road. That's Raider Road. And this area will be lined with all new trees, as you can see. It is also being done in conjunction. The design was done in conjunction with the work from Penn Medicine. You may recall Penn Medicine is installing a traffic signal at this intersection. So it meshes with that plan, ADA compliant curb ramps, the crosswalk, and what we feel will be a safer travel for pedestrians as well as motorists. If you could go to the next slide, Ian. So we're just traveling up towards the bus garage along King of Prussia Road. Again, you're looking at it two-dimensionally, but you see the golden area is the path, again, lined with trees. And by the way, this did go through Shade Tree Commission, and the plan was approved by Shade Tree Commission. Next slide, please. This is the first entrance to the bus garage, which again, ADA compliant ramps, crosswalk. Next slide, please. And this is the end of the Radnor property line, is the red line. The crosswalk you see there is the second entrance or exit to the bus garage. So for the Radnor Senior High School, this project starts at Radnor, Chester, and Lancaster and follows Lancaster Avenue to King of Prussia Road and up King of Prussia Road. Above that property line is Penn Medicine, which we're working on getting easements from them. So I could take you to the actual easement plan. I know this was a little quick, but I didn't want to bore everybody. But this is the basic premise for the project. And there are some very good benefits to this. So aside from all the benefits of a trail, a bike and walking trail, we feel it's going to alleviate the school district of some issues with sidewalks. So I don't remember who was on the board about 2 or 3 years ago. We met for 2 days walking the proposed area. So there's a considerable amount of trees that are coming down with the project, but a lot of them are in declining state. And we are planting quite a few back over and above what's required from the shade tree ordinance. And we're lining the pathway with trees as well as all throughout. And again, so now the crosswalks and those curb ramps will be ADA compliant. It will be safer for folks. And this will eventually take you up. It follows King of Prussia Road all the way up to the other end of Radnor Chester for this specific run.
What about the easements? Do we need to get an easement? Is this an easement discussion, and don't we need an easement the whole way up to Radnor Chester?
Yes, so I can show you that, Commissioner Booker. Would you like me to step through that very quickly?
No, I've seen it, but it's just, this is an easement discussion. I'm wondering if it's any different between the school district and the others, or this is only a school district issue.
So the easements required for this project on this location are specific to the school district, because where the path and the stormwater management systems are dictate where the permanent and temporary construction easements are. So we need easements we're requesting easements from the school board, Penn Medicine, as well as residents of Cornerstone. So down at Cornerstone, the trail requires very little grading. It's very flat. And so the temporary easement is somewhat minimal, and the permanent easement is also. But here for the high school, there was some considerable grading in that we wanted to make the appropriate slopes. So it is specific to the easements are specific to the property. I know that was a little quick, but I don't know how else to go through a somewhat long linear project, and I will gladly entertain any questions, or we can review the actual easement drawings.
Stephen and Bill and John, can you guys just step through? You guys, I know, are collaborating closely with the school district and set up meetings, because we are on a timeline with regards to this.
That's correct, Commissioner Borowski. So PennDOT intends to bid this project in August, which means these easement agreements, which other plans hinge on, have to be submitted to PennDOT for their review and approval to get to that August date.
And then Steve, do you want to give a quick update on the 2 meetings we've had and the direction that we're headed in on that front?
Yes, sir. So we have had 2 meetings with the school district, their solicitor, superintendent, one of their board members, Mr. White, myself, and a few others. So we're working with the school district. We realize we are requesting this from the school district, and I think things are moving along. I believe we've answered a lot of their questions, and in the discussions, I think it's come out that everybody agrees it's all the residents of Radnor Township, whether it be through the school district or Radnor Township, we're all serving the same people. They're all the same constituents. It's all Radnor. So we're trying to do a project for the good, but we have to respect the school district's wishes and make sure they're brought up to speed. They have many new board members who weren't around when we did the physical tours of the property to show the proposed trail. So hopefully we will be on, requested to be on the next facilities committee meeting to go to present to the Radnor Township School District Facilities Committee to present the plan, present the easement requests, and answer any questions they have. I think the district used one of their engineering firms to review the plans. We responded to all their comments, and the remaining comments are very minor, which we'll have addressed. And their engineers shared that with the superintendent, their board, and their solicitor. Solicitor Rice has been at these meetings also. So we have both attorneys there. And we're all working towards this common goal. The timeline is definitely constricted, but we have to take into consideration that there's so many new members on the school district board as well as our board. And I think now at this point, everybody's moving as quickly as we can.
And then just real quickly with regard, Steve, on the budget side of the project, it's in round numbers, we're talking about a $3 million trail project roughly, and $2.25 million of that is being covered through 4 different grants. So the cost to the township is going to be roughly $700,000. I haven't seen the latest budget numbers for about a month or so, and those are changing a little bit, but that's the right ballpark that we're in for the project.
Yes, sir. So there is a considerable amount of grant money, as Mr. White noted, $2.25 million. Perhaps I could touch on a few other things. So as part of this project, the township will be planting 245 replacement trees. The township school district requested that some of them be larger. So instead of the 2 to 2.5 inch caliper that's required by the shade tree ordinance, 17 are going to be 3.5 to 4 inch caliper. 60 of them will be 2.5 to 3 inch caliper. And there will be a diversity of trees. This will not be a monoculture. The concern with the monoculture is if there is a blight specific to one species, it would wipe everything out. In this way, we try to limit no more than maximum 10% of one species in all these plantings. We're also talking to the school board about some other items, whether it be stream bank protection or additional trees, which I don't think would be an issue with this project.
Steve, I have a couple questions.
Yes, Commissioner.
So just again, I apologize if this is redundant to things that have already been covered in the past, but comparison's sake, if I'm standing on the Radnor Trail right now, in comparison, what is the width of the TAP trail in comparison?
Very similar.
Okay.
So it has that same 2-foot shoulder, the same paved width. And this is all dictated by the Federal Highway Association. So there's federal money involved here. So this is all dictated by that. And actually, you will be able to reach this trail. So where the current Radnor Trail terminates at Radnor Chester Road, you will be able to walk along Radnor Chester Road, cross Lancaster Avenue, and get on this trail. A couple of meetings ago, we requested and the board so approved some of the PennDOT TE 160 forms. They were so we could make some changes to that intersection to bring it up to snuff for pedestrian crossing. So this portion does directly connect with the Radnor Trail.
Excellent. Okay. Next question has to do with impact to traffic on Lancaster and King of Prussia. And I guess I'll start with what is the expected length or duration of the project from start to finish, and then I'll let you answer the question on terms of potential impact to traffic along Lancaster and King of Prussia at any point in time.
So right now, PennDOT is slating 130 calendar days for this project. So the project, just to back up, the township is funding it or is proposing to fund it through the grants and also township money. The project will be bid and constructed by PennDOT under their ECMS project. So it will be a PennDOT project. The township is proposing to perform the inspections and obviously would fund it if so approved by the board. So in those projects, PennDOT does not get into means and methods, meaning one contractor could very well decide to do most of this work, if possible, or some of this work behind, off the road, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But I would anticipate, just due to the amount of excavation, the stormwater management, even going up King of Prussia, I would anticipate single lane closures on Lancaster Avenue. So the far right lane heading westbound, I would anticipate to be closed, not permanently, but as the construction process moves along. I would expect a similar situation along King of Prussia Road, but Commissioner, I don't have that time period.
Okay, but the duration helps. Thank you.
Hey, Steve, it's Jake.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to focus on the other end of the trail real quick. Is it still the proposed plan that the access on the west end of the township will be at Friends of Radnor Trail?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
And there will be no trail through the preserve?
Correct. There would be no trail through the preserve. There would be no crossing at Lenore at Conestoga. There will be some stormwater management that has to be constructed in that area, so there would be a construction entrance for a short time. But the plan is to eliminate the trail that was originally proposed to go through the West Wayne Preserve, which would also eliminate the crosswalk as well as the rapid flashing beacon at Lenore and Conestoga.
Okay, and then the 700,000 figure, I think that was given for the township part of this project. That's assuming there's no change orders before the board, correct?
Correct, and it assumes a few things, Commissioner. So the biggest thing is it's going to be a sealed bid project through PennDOT. So we have to anticipate, we until those bids are open, we don't know the exact price. So the bidding climate is, I'll give you a technical term, the bidding climate is a bit wonky right now because we've had the shutdown, the closure, there's a backlog of projects, but there's also contractors that are looking for work. So once the bid price comes in, obviously then we can, and the commissioners would know the bid price. A project of this scale, yes, I would anticipate some change orders, some to the good as in credits, and perhaps some that would be a plus. But that is really for unanticipated items, and it would be normal for a project of this size.
And I would add to that the latest budget numbers that we received from Peter Simone on this included a little over $300,000 in contingency. So that project total includes the $300,000 in contingency that presumably would be used to absorb any fluctuations in the bid prices and then any kind of change orders that may come up during the project.
And that price also, if I may add to Mr. White, so that price also included a number for inspections. So previously, the Board of Commissioners authorized engineering to receive requests for proposals for engineering for inspections on this project. And so it was a select group because they have to be PennDOT qualified under the ECMS system. So we have received those. We are reviewing them, and we hope to be before the board, perhaps the second meeting in May, to request you award that. But all these items are included in that number, and we do have the inspection numbers. I will tell you the inspection numbers are based on the 130 days I noted to Commissioner Enderle. The reality of it is we pay them for the time they work. So if the project is reduced in time, in duration, because the contractor is able to use certain efficiencies, we pay less. If it's longer, we pay slightly more. An hourly rate, and you'll see in the RFPs, I did request an estimate of what it would cost to do the job, but really it comes down to the hourly rate.
So then, John Rice, could you kind of, or could you explain what the next steps are? What's going to end up in front of the board and when?
Well, can I just ask a quick question before you get into that? So the funds for this, was that included in the Parks and Trails bond? So that's bond money, right? The township's contribution to this?
Yeah, we included roughly 400,000 in the bond. So as it stands right now, and well, as it stood the last time we had the updated budget numbers, we're still about 300,000 short in terms of township funding that we would need to allocate at some point over the life of the project.
Okay.
Just one more thing, Steve, the current draft of the easement agreement has the township taking care of the snow on this trail, right?
Yes, I think if you go to, there's a couple items that talk about maintenance, and it goes to the grantor. I'm sorry, to the grantee. So if you look through Exhibit A, the grantee, the township is responsible for maintenance of the trail.
Paragraph 18 would cover that, snow removal. And just the document that you have in front of you is something that this was discussed 2 years ago. It looked at like a totally different document that the school district solicitor and myself and the parties that were involved in this had put together. We were then told, I guess last fall, that we needed to utilize certain PennDOT forms. So we revisited the terms of that previous draft agreement and incorporated them in on this Exhibit A, which is attached to the PennDOT form easement agreement. So there'll be a permanent easement agreement and there'll be a temporary easement agreement. And we separated out on a set of plans the permanent easement area and the temporary construction easement area. So the terms that are set forth on Exhibit A, and there's 19 or 20 paragraphs, these were discussed 2 years ago and we were told to stop doing anything further. I think by the federal government, whoever was involved with the federal funding, Steve, we were told to don't finalize that. So
Correct.
There's been little or nothing done in 2 years, but these paragraphs, and there's a similar document with Penn Medicine for 250 Radnor Chester Road that we had negotiated with Penn Medicine 2 years ago with similar provisions, almost virtually identical, that will be in front of the board. And then there's a third easement agreement, which will be the Cornerstone property. So they're the three property owners that we're working on now to try to get this finalized. I'm waiting for some comments back, which I expect shortly from the school district solicitor on this document. And I know there's some revisions to the final plans. that Peter Simone's working on and the school district's consultant. So, ultimately, I guess what's going to be in front of the board is going to be the plans as they go forward, and then these easement agreements once they get finalized. And we're trying to do this to finalize this under what we've been told is, PennDOT needs 2 months to finalize right-of-way clearances because they're bidding this out and they're constructing this. The township's considered, I believe, the sponsor, Steve, on this project. So we're doing all the footwork, and then ultimately we've got to hand them a set of right-of-way plans that they like and approve, and then they'll bid it out and award a bid. So we've been told there's the end of May, they're going to do it in August, they're going to bid it in August, and that, I suppose that could change, but since they need 2 months, we're looking at the end of May to try to get all the right-of-way documents finalized. And I think we've got plenty of time to do that. And we've had a couple meetings, as Steve said, with the school district, which we had one today, which went well. And I think the parties are pretty much, at least path forward, on the same page.
Were we able to get the school district the size plans that they wanted and the updated plans, Steve?
So Commissioner, Bill Dolan for the school district, the interim facilities head, he provided the facilities committee with plans that he had. One of the things we discussed today was putting together a package for the facilities meeting that would really meet their needs as far as showing easements, showing dimensions. Mr. White had noted perhaps the best vehicle was a PowerPoint presentation with the plans in it, and I think everybody agreed on that. So I have the specific requests from the school district as far as what they would like to see, and I agree with Mr. White in that having the PowerPoint allows us the verbiage, as opposed to what I just did with this board, which was going through a couple thousand feet of trail. We can pick and choose specific areas, show the temporary and permanent easement requests, as well as the trail, as well as the tree plantings and tree removal. And so for their next committee meeting, we will have I believe what they really want to see. Peter Simone said he would start working on it. It's actually going to be collaborative with the township and Simone. We'll make sure that what we want to present is shown.
And that meeting's going to be May 19th. That's their next facilities committee meeting.
Okay. Okay. And then they would review it, and then the full board would discuss it at the end of May?
Well, we would hope that would happen.
That would be the request.
We would hope
the idea.
We'd hope the facilities committee would make a recommendation to the full school board, and but that's out of our hands. I think we just need to clean everything up between now and that meeting, and Steve is going to put together his PowerPoint presentation and present that, I guess, at that meeting, right, Steve, on May 19th?
That's correct, Solicitor. That would be the plan, and perhaps you may be joining me. I do need to convey to the board, Solicitor Rice has done a great job in having to work with PennDOT agreements that are geared towards highways and are being used for trails. So he's had his work cut out for him, and I think he's done a banner job in making it so that we can try to get this thing through.
Well, we'll see if PennDOT approves it, Steve. Then you can pat me on the back. But dealing with PennDOT is not easy. They've given us a sort of a template which contemplates eminent domain and what they would typically do when they're acquiring a roadway. So, there is some flexibility that we figured out with DVRPC, who's overseeing this for PennDOT. And I think we're heading in the right direction. So it took a little bit of time, but I think we'll get there.
Well, thank you guys very much, and thank you for making sure the school board has what they need to consider this and make an informed decision. So thank you.
And I know you said it earlier, but just remind me, when is the deadline that PennDOT wants to start? When do we have to get all of this done so that they can get the go-ahead with their construction?
They've told us by the end of May, they need all the documents for an August bid date.
August, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we can move on to item 5B, Office of Emergency Management update to the board.
I'll kick this one off, and then Chris, if you want to jump in. Hopefully the board had an opportunity to review. I think since the last time we met virtually, the Office of Emergency Management has issued 2 different updates. The latest went out this morning and provided the updates on all of the different team members and their efforts to date. So I won't go into a lot of detail about that, but we can answer any questions that you have after reading it. The biggest update from our perspective tonight is talking about the soft opening that we're doing, that we started today and will continue tomorrow, leading up to the reopening of the township building to the public on Wednesday morning, provided there's nothing that comes up between now and then that tells us glaringly that we should not do that. But we came to this conclusion for a couple different reasons. The first being, and the primary one being that the governor initiated or declared that construction companies can get back to work starting May 1st. That being the case, we need our codes and engineering departments to be ramped up and here in the building and ready to respond and help those construction companies out accordingly. And as good as everyone was getting at doing it remotely, it's just not as efficient and as good as when you do it here in the building. So plus, as we talked about before we went live, given the updates on the different protocols that our emergency management leaders have put in place for us to ensure the staff and the public safety, it is obvious that we can achieve both. And we can have the building open, we can process the things that we need to process, and keep folks socially distant. We can clean as we need to clean. Folks will be required to wear masks. We have gloves, and we'll be doing the sanitizing of the building on a regular basis, at least daily, if not more. We wanted to give the staff a couple days back at their desks in a more relaxed environment without the phones ringing and the folks being here in the building. So that was today and tomorrow. And then Wednesday morning we'll go live. A couple things kind of backwards looking just to highlight is I know it was we don't have a lot of actors on our cast or on our staff. So if you had an opportunity to watch the video, I know a lot of folks around here got a chuckle out of seeing themselves, but what we were trying to portray is that even though the building's been closed, in every single department, every single employee has been contributing. And you can see that when you watch the video. And then it also becomes evident when you look at the update that Chris Gluck and Marie prepared. You could see all the different members of the staff and their contributions and participation during this. And what that didn't go into detail on are the daily phone calls and emails that they're responding to anyway. And that's important going forward, in that while we're staggering our staff in the building to meet the governor's protocol, the folks that aren't physically here every day still have the same requirement to work remotely. So they're still available, they'll still be responding to phone calls and emails, and they'll still be producing what is required of them in their positions. So And in talking with some of the folks today, we had a few folks that were very, very excited to be back in and get some normalcy back into their worlds. We anticipate that with tomorrow's group, and then we'll be ready to go come Wednesday morning. Before I hand it off to Chris for any updates that I'm missing, I did want to emphasize one more time, just thank you to the board for your support in understanding in the process and the decision making. I know as we've gone through this, and even right now, there's decisions that are made both ways. Obviously, the Parks and Trails are the biggest lightning rod. But in any case, the support from the board, even if you didn't agree with the decisions, has still been tremendous, and it has helped the leadership team here make those tough decisions, knowing that they have your support on the process. Again, even if the decision itself is not something you agree with, just understanding and agreeing to the process meant a ton. And that's really, in addition to the strength of their leadership, that has gone such a long way to get us to where we are today. Hopefully a couple steps closer to normal, whenever that may be.
Hey,
Chris.
Bill, just one question.
Sorry. Yep.
So if you have staff who are not comfortable returning to the building just yet, are they still allowed to work remotely?
So we have staff that fall into a couple different categories. Some that medically have reasons that they should be a little bit more concerned, and those that that just aren't there comfort-wise, and we are working with them. We're trying to be flexible. Well, we are being flexible with them. And the part about that that's working out nicely is that those employees are continuing to do their jobs. So from a performance standpoint, going back to high school economics, they're still producing the widgets that we're asking them to produce, and doing so in the timeframes that they're asked to do it. So the folks that aren't there comfort-wise or medically should not be coming into the building. We are working with them, and I don't anticipate any issues with that because, again, they're doing the job. Chris, did I miss anything material?
No, sir, Mr. White. I think just commissioners, Mr. White stayed on top of the department heads, and our staff was very happy to get back to work. We're taking steps to ensure their comfort and safety. And I want to thank the residents, because we know that they've been, their life changes affected being able to get permits, visit our Parks and Rec department, stop in for an accident report, see the finance department about a sewer bill or a tax bill. And it's been a significant impact on them. So we acknowledge our community's support of our decision to keep the township building themselves safe and our staff safe. There's a significant update. The EM team, as we call it, emergency management team, has broken down functions to keep this manageable so that the department heads can operate. There's a lot of information that's been provided to the commissioners, and Marie and Chris have done a very good job. We can go into a couple things, but I would like to highlight, besides for going operational, some things that will be posted on the web as well on Wednesday, the way the building will look. There'll be some changes that our community would notice, but nobody will be refused service, and you'll be able to get all of the functions you need done in the township. What I would say is just maybe a little bit slower, a little bit more focused on safety and transfer of information. So for example, a package, a letter, or a check will stand by 24 hours before somebody goes in and moves them along. There's some decontamination processes and other things that will just slow down our processes, but we will be 100% effective. Mr. White and the team have made sure of that. One of our things is our EM team is going out and inspecting different properties and making sure that everybody is maintaining. So it's not just inside the township building, it expands outside the township building. And I'll end just with one comment. Mr. White assigned Bob Tate to stay on top of all the financial opportunities for small businesses, residents, anybody who may be affected. In the packet, there's a thing called Delco Strong, where they've introduced another program to help get possible financing if you qualify, and that's been posted on our web by our public information officer. So it's an all hands on deck team approach to help the community build back. And I'll stop there just in case there's questions. It's such a broad document. I think it's hard to go over everything, so I'd rather answer the commissioners' questions if they have any.
So I have two. So at first, I'd say that the report, just so the public knows that the reports that we're getting and the report that I got this morning was just extremely well done. So to the team that's doing that, thank you very much. It's concise, easy to read, and really gets to the point. Is two questions. Number one, is staff healthy? Have we had any cases from the staff?
During the event, Commissioner, there's been approximately 3 people that we asked to go home. We haven't had any positive tests overall. We've had a couple people who were on travel who were quarantined for the 14 days in the beginning of this process. They're going through the emergency management team. There's a checklist they go through. As you are all aware, watching the news, the CDC keeps changing that. It's generally more in the positive as they have better information. So we are fully functional right at this time. Very flexible for our staff if they have a concern, and we have medical monitoring if needed.
Okay, and then are you still doing the temperature checks prior to going to work? I know that you were doing this with the police. Would this also be the case with the admin staff?
The answer is if they need it, we will get it. We are on back order. 3 weeks ago, we placed in orders for thermometers, the kind of what they call are temporal. They swipe on the top because obviously many people use it. So we're waiting for them to come in. If anybody has a problem, the emergency management team responds directly to them in a very confidential manner, works through whatever the possible issue is with their department head, and then we deal with it from them. But we are waiting for probably 4 sets of thermometers to come in. If I could make one point, I did forget to mention the management team is staying coordinated with all our nursing homes and most importantly with our firefighters and our EMS, Radnor Fire Company EMS, our heroes on the front line dealing with this. So they're staying in touch not only with our providers, but also some of the places where they may have the highest level of contact. So there's a weekly phone call internally for Radnor Township, which we get information from them. There's several emails going back and forth as they are dealing with a significant burden, Radnor Fire Company, Radnor EMS, and Bryn Mawr Fire Company, Bryn Mawr Fire Company.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
Yep. Mr. President, I just have a couple comments, couple questions. And Chief and Bill, again, want to thank the emergency management team for their work. At Bill, as you said, I haven't always agreed with the decisions made, but I do know that they're healthy discussions and they're looking at all sides of the issues. The one question I have from today's brief was a line in there that said there was no increased uptick in usage of parks. I believe that's what I'm paraphrasing. And what I didn't see was incidents at Memorial Field. It's my understanding that over the weekend there was a large lacrosse game that was broken up at Memorial Field. I've been over to Memorial Field numerous times, and what I've seen there is, the goal here is to get residents out participating and getting exercise. But what's taking place is groups of athletes are coming out because it's a synthetic field. It's not impacted by the weather, and we have a lot of personal training going on, and we have a lot of team activities, as demonstrated by the incident on Saturday. So Radnor families aren't actually getting to use the facility to be able to get families outside. So if that's going to continue to be the case, I would ask that the emergency management team look at, if they're not going to close all parks, at least look at that one field.
If I may, Mr. White, Commissioner Abel has been very diligent on monitoring the parks. His constituents have given him almost live feedback, I think we agree, and Commissioner Abel has been out advising us of some situations. The police have responded to Memorial Field, and just to bring everybody into perspective, our opinion is that the turf and the high quality level of that field is very attractive. Many of the public schools in our private schools in our surrounding communities have closed their entire campuses. Yet many public schools throughout the communities are open, but not many have turf fields for use. We did respond up. There's been literally 3 major venues, and Commissioner Abel confirmed they're not even from the township, although public fields. We've had outside townships or our teams using our fields, our public fields. And there was a lacrosse group that had basically several members under the age of 18 with no coach present, basically conduct what I would call an unofficial gathering. I can't say it was a practice, but clearly they were all geared up for lacrosse and were out there. Radnor Police responded in a very gentle and slow response and moved them off based on social distancing concepts. We have some conflicting information from the CDC and other things in regards to sports and whether they need to be masked or not masked. We're operating under the most simple guidelines that the governor has given about keeping people separated. We had a football team, which we were able to identify the coach and move them on. Memorial Field is busy. What I would suggest, Commissioner Abel, is that we, with Mr. White's approval, we conduct a little bit more, I don't want to call it surveillance, but monitoring the park, where we really count and see if we have what I would call quasi-organized sports, if that's a term, just because of social media, they're able to get together and come to this wonderful turf field and use it. Because I think you're right, there is groups there as opposed to individuals that our other parks are seeing.
Yeah, no, I agree, Chief, and well, I agree with your assessment why they're coming to the park. It's an amazing field, and I take my boys there just to get them on a nice surface. But we end up being in a small little sliver in the corner due to all the personal training going on, and to practice social distancing when you've got 6 or 7 different sessions of training that take up large areas. Residents no longer have access to that field.
And one thing too is that Tammy Cohen, our parks director, has followed up with 2 of the organizations that what I will call registered, quote unquote, that use some of our fields. The other ones have never used our fields before, and we have attempted to follow up. So I think we're having some success, and I think that curve is correcting itself. But I suggest we monitor for a week. I get back to Mr. White. We provide an update to the board, and I'll also talk to Tammy Cohen. Mr. White.
Yeah, I'm absolutely on board with that, because I mean, at the end of the day, it is a public park, and that invites the public to come to it. And there's no way to really check IDs when they're running onto the field. So, and it is a nice field. I've done the same thing with my kids. So the monitoring seems like a good idea, and I'd hate to shut that field down and punish the Radnor residents that are getting to use it on the basis of all these surrounding communities kind of abusing the openness of it. So if we can monitor it and shoo these folks along and get the word out that it's not for organized sports, it's for the general public to come enjoy, I think that'd be a better solution than, gating it up or taping it off.
Yeah, I would have different thoughts if I saw more Radnor residents and families being able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I think we have a, there is an issue that the Radnor parks are not restricted for usage for Radnor residents. Our parks were closed for several weeks, and our residents went to our adjoining township parks to get their open space in there. So I'm just a little worried about putting in rules that are only apply to people who can prove they live in the township. It's either an open park or it's not, and I'm not sure that we have the ability to kind of do that sort of check.
No,
or want to, frankly.
I think the monitoring will be more towards the organized groups, the large organized groups coming together at that field. So, I mean, it's going to be hard for any family to go and have a catch in the corner of the field when there's, 14 lacrosse guys, chucking that ball at 100 miles an hour around. So I think it'd be more along the lines of just talking to the organized folks and asking them to share.
Isn't that normally a field that if an organized team wanted to use it, they'd have to rent it? So, I mean, they can't just come there if they're not renting the field, correct?
Yeah, so we're kind of in an awkward position right now because all the actual organizations that would otherwise come and permit the field from us are all shut down. So these groups are getting together, as the chief pointed out, either through social media or through other means, and just saying, hey, let's all meet up at Radnor Memorial at noon on Saturday. It's no one going through the actual permitting process, but they're still all getting together. And then once you get enough folks there playing, it kind of weeds out the folks who are just there for, lesser recreation.
Well, if they're
Hey,
an
Bill?
organized group and they're not playing, then they shouldn't be there.
Yeah, Bill, can you post it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you just post it and say during the crisis, organized sports groups are prohibited from using the field?
We sure
And see
can, but at the
whether
end of the
that
day, it's going to come down to enforcement. We're going to have someone up there monitoring it.
Well, I think you'll have the residents monitor it, but to say, groups of no more than X people, so if it's organized or not, to get to Maura's point, because you don't want to start pointing fingers of who's from the township and who is not, but at the same time, I think the residents will do a good job calling it in.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that for the last couple of weeks.
They are paying attention.
They are
Everybody-
paying
everybody's
attention,
paying attention.
self-monitoring.
Well, as a community, when you look at the case growth over the period of the entire response, Radnor's done pretty good. So the community deserves their credit.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions,
I'd like to just make a general comment that I know it was a difficult decision to close the parks and also to open, and people with opinions on both sides, but I really do appreciate the emergency management team being so thoughtful. I appreciate all the staff being really responsive to constituents, either directly or through us commissioners, as we were working our way through it. So thank you all very much.
Hey, I echo that. You guys are doing a great job. So thank you. Under some adverse conditions. So thank you very much.
And commissioners, just Mr. White had mentioned too, our public works team has been outstanding. The double amount of trash, pickups, other things that they've been asked to do from building structures of the township building. Our public works crew has met the challenge, the emergency management team, and everybody is really working together. So I will give if you will, a shout out, quote unquote, to our team.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
that cannot be understated, the work that they're doing. And maybe as a good segue, just as a quick update on the yard waste is, I think they almost got through the entire town on Friday. I think most of the 7th Ward maybe is where they fell off, but that's where they'll pick up coming this Thursday. So I appreciate everyone's patience on that too. The amount of yard waste has been unbelievable.
Will that be Thursday or Friday? Because I thought it's going to go with recyclables.
So on the yard waste side, they are picking up where they left off last Friday, but that will be Thursday. So they're going to start where they left off.
Okay.
Finish the sweep through the town on Thursday, and then go back to the beginning, and then start working their way back through the town again.
Okay.
They'll be there.
Yeah. Can you put something out, because I'm saying to put it out with the recyclables. So
Yep.
I'll put that out on my end, but just something that'd be helpful.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Folks put it out with the recyclables. If we miss them, we're just asking folks for a week's patience. That if we miss you this week, we'll be by next week.
Okay.
But I mean, once they get through this sweep, they will have made it through the town twice. And the second time through, as I understood it, was considerably less than the first time. So I would suspect by the third time through, it'll be something a little bit closer to what a normal Wednesday would be. And they should be able to make it through in 2 days. Again, that's without call outs and if we have all hands on deck.
Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago, 4th Ward, we ended up kind of, them not being able to get to us. And they came this week and got through everybody. So I'm just telling everyone to put it out on Thursday. and that, you know, they'll be there. And if not, then they'll be back the next week.
Okay, thank you guys. Item 6, do we have any old business?
Hey, Mr. President, just one thing, and it's probably more appropriate for new business, but it looks like we're on the path of, you know, it looks like we're starting to reopen more things, and just wondering from the township's perspective, when we're going to start talking about ideas and items to support the business district when the township reopens. You know, just a couple things that I've been thinking about and think would be a good idea. We've got to look at stopping the collecting for parking. You know, I would look at it almost indefinitely, or maybe throughout the year, just so we can try to attract more customers back into the township. Another idea is a First Friday, which they do in other townships. And, you know, one thing I'd like to throw out there and have a discussion about at some point is, because I think even when we open up, restaurants are still going to have to look at social distancing. Do we allow for outdoor dining and still be able to separate tables as a way for restaurants, if they can't get full capacity inside, they can look at putting additional tables outside? So just a couple of thoughts that I have, but more interested in when the township is, what they're looking at and when we're going to start rolling some of these ideas out.
Sure. So I'll give you 3 answers for the price of 1. The first is, I just want to remind everybody who's watching, obviously we all know, but if you didn't tune in last meeting, we actually have started taking steps for small business already. So it's not like we are getting around to this at the tail end, what I hope is the tail end of the shutdown. We've already pushed back the due date for business taxes until September, and we've reduced the amount that are actually due this year by 50%, although that's ultimately revenue neutral to the township, because we'll be collecting the back end of that tax in 2021. Jake, I'm not sure if precisely each one of the 3 ideas that you just put out are ones that we've heard from township staff. I suspect that you probably have good spins on each one of them, which is going to be distinct and valuable. But those are definitely in the realm of the concepts that we've been kind of tossing around. Credit where it's due, particularly with Bill White and Chief Flanagan. Yesterday, I want to say 2 days ago maybe, Chris Todd also suggested that we could hold a drive-in movie by shutting down North Wayne Avenue, renting equipment, and then allow people to come in, park. And although he was tactful enough not to say it, I'm pretty confident the concept would then be that they would order out from the restaurants, they would show up and deliver to their cars. That's something that we're working on doing. My suggestion would be, send your ideas. I'm confident those are not the only 3 that you have had, and I'm confident that you have pretty well developed ideas for what you want to do with them. Send your ideas to Bill, me, Lisa, anybody that you're comfortable talking to. Let's get a plan together for the next meeting, and I'd like to roll them all out ideally, frankly, I'd like to talk to the business community first and have a conversation with them about what they want to see. There's some things that I've suggested that I'm told we're just really not that interested in. I still frankly think that the additional tables, which you mentioned, is a really good idea. What I'd like to see is the First Friday concept where we shut down streets, turn them into pedestrian access ways, let tables spill into the street and the sidewalk in a way that they couldn't ordinarily. There's going to be a huge amount of pent-up demand, is my bet, for entertainment, dining out, that kind of thing. And if you're a restaurant that's always full, you're not going to be able to take any advantage of that pent-up demand. But if we allow you to put out new tables, then not only are you not being restricted by the additional restrictions that we're going to have for COVID-19 social distancing, you can maybe get new tables out there and make more than you would have on a regular Thursday night or Friday night. So I like to find ways to do that. I'm told that there's costs associated with renting the tables and concerns that the restaurateurs have about, is it going to be worth the cost of investment if people don't actually show up, because not everybody agrees with me. But like I say, let's have the larger conversation with both the WBA, the Garrett Hill Merchants Association. Sean, I'm sure I just butchered that. Can you correct me?
I don't think there's anything such thing, but I'll bring that up. So
Okay. The notables. Let's ask them what they need and let's put something together as a group in the next 2 weeks or so. And then do it, because this is something where I think we need to spend some money or forego some revenue, because otherwise we're going to lose basically what makes Radnor something other than just a subdivision, which is our business community and everything.
Yeah,
else.
there's something that we could do here, and that kind of jogs my mind. And obviously, it's not anything that I could arrange, but we would need some of the business owners, especially the two bars, to talk to the business campus, to do something very similar in that business campus where you have tables. You could have very light outdoor dining, drinking. So I guess there would need to be some busing of alcohol across Conestoga Road. So I guess we'd need the police to weigh in on that. You probably need to close part of Conestoga Road down, or at least have some kind of police presence. But yeah, I think there's a lot of ideas, and I'll kick that around with members of my community and in the business community to see if we can come up with something on our end of the township. So thank you.
How do you maintain 6 feet with waitress service?
Well, you're not maintaining 6 feet in a lot of different places. The grocery store, Home Depot, which are open right now. I imagine that whenever restaurants open, restaurants are probably going to end up being last on the list of things that reopen. I imagine that when they do reopen, tables are going to have to be farther apart than they are right now. But yeah, fundamentally, I think that if restaurants are open, there's going to have to be some level of the people at your table are not 6 feet away from you. The waitress or the waiter who serves you is not 6 feet away from you. That's just kind of the nature of the game. Right now, when we pick up food for takeout, you're probably not 6 feet away from the person when you pick it up.
The other item that we're kind of watching in real time, some of these other states that have opened up those businesses, and they've allowed restaurants to reopen. So they're kind of riding down the learning curve for us. So hopefully by the time Pennsylvania gets around to it, they'll have a lot of those little bugs figured out and make it a little bit safer for us.
Probably can't wear a mask while you eat either.
You wear one of those shields.
And Mr. President, you're right. I don't know what it's going to look like when they reopen. My point was I just wanted to have those discussions, so we're not having them as it reopens, and would like to have some plan, or at least the start of a plan in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a couple of additional issues that I think we should probably talk about offline. But yeah, I want to hear your thoughts. Let's just schedule a call, I guess.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Great. Turning to public participation. I have received no emails on the public participation. So I guess we're moving to adjournment. I think I heard a pre-second from Sean. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Okay.
Stay safe.